job. The mayor's office keeps us under, too.
Hey.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to call the Environmental Services Utility Board meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2023 to order. We will start with item 1, and that is public comment. Do we have any public comment that would like to be addressed tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 2, roll call.
Mayor Curtis.
Present.
Alderman Lewis.
Here.
Alderman O'Brien. Here. Alderman Olinga.
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Jones.
Present.
Clerk Hall.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Next, we'll move on to item 3. You should have the minutes in your packet from April 17th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
We have a motion from Alderman Osinga. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Alderwoman Swanson. Is there any questions, comments, changes, or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz. Alderman O'Brien. Aye. Alderman Olinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Hall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to item 4. You should have in your packet the bills for May 15th, 2023. Those bills for May 15th, 2023 total $167,911.78. You also have the bills from May 1st that total $191,232.53 for a total of $359,144.31. Is there a motion to approve the bills for environmental services utility?
I'll make a motion to approve the total bills of $359,144.31.
We have a motion from Alderwoman Swanson. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Alderwoman Lewis. Is there any questions or comments regarding the bills before you? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz. Alderman O'Brien. Alderman Olinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Hall.
Aye, but I do need to abstain from check 33473 to Pickesh Engineering due to a conflict.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. The bills are approved for environmental services utility. We'll move into item 5, and that is reports, and we will start with our ESU Street and Alley report. Mr. Lopez?
Good evening. Everything's pretty much in your report. I want to hit on a couple things. We started the Durapatcher last week. We went through 250 gallons of emulsion, so that's in about four days. So we got lucky, and where we only have to have limestone to get it, which was a good thing for us instead of getting it delivered. So we always have it on hand. So we're doing that. We're trying to hit a little bit in every ward. So if you guys see anything that you guys need done or want done, we're trying to stay on the outskirts of town right now until we get a little better with getting it level, and stuff like that to make it look a lot better. And a little bit about the spring cleanup that we had. We used a total of 11 dumpsters with a total of 31 tons of waste that we had hauled away. So that's it.
Using the, go ahead, Alderman O'Brien.
Is the machine working as we hoped or thought it would?
Yeah, it's working. It's working great. It worked. It's really nice that I found out that if it's just when you go down the roads and there's just like the top layers peeled off, it's really good at that. And then also filling in the spiders around it to buy more time so it doesn't. Because like when we realize when we do cold patch, it just compresses and then the spiders around it pop out and then there's another one. This is really good at getting into those little cracks around the spidering. So it's working out great.
You mentioned about 250 gallons, is that what
Yeah.
you said? Does that seem like a lot, or is that normal?
That's a lot more. It costs a lot more to run this machine than it would to do hot patch and cold patch. And then we still have the 1,000-gallon tank that we are going to go with the help of Clara's team. They set it up at the armory for me, so that it's going to be there. So we'll get, instead of going all the way over there, we'll always have 1,000 gallons on hand.
Do you expect that would be a normal week, 250 though?
Yes.
I mean, this first summer, I imagine we're
Yeah.
just going to use that thing.
Yeah, we're going to use, when the guys get better of using less emulsion and more rock, they got to play with it that way.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Deeper holes call for more material, so.
Alderman Jones.
With the deeper holes, do we put gravel in it? How do you work?
We try to pull the stuff that's around it into the hole and use that as a base. Because this machine has the little rock in the truck, so we're not carrying bigger stone around. So when they pull up to a hole, it may be deeper, but they don't have that filler stone in, so they're using more little rock. But we were lucky enough to from a business that's closed that had a surplus of rock that they let us have it. So the first couple months we're going to be using free stone, which worked out great.
Any other questions for Mr. Lopez? Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move into the ESU Technical Services Report. Ms. Hall?
So as far as technical services, as far as technical services is concerned, we have been gearing up for the farmers market. Of course, we are heading into our annual summer events, farmers market every week, and the events as we go into the music fest and strawberry fest and things of that nature. So we take the spring to prepare for those items. I just want to bring your attention to our report. We're trying to provide a little bit more formal report so our board knows all the different things that we cover on a weekly basis. So it's a little bit different than it has been. I've been providing it this way the last couple of months. So if there's any questions, feel free to let me know. Just want to let you know that we are kind of like all over the place. It's not just electrical within the buildings or the lift stations. It's just kind of all over the city. Other than that, summer help started today, so we've just chugging along, keeping busy, so.
Is there any questions for Ms. Hall? Alderwoman Johnson?
I have a question. Under the ComEd liaison report, there was a request for power out in the tall prairie
Yes.
grass. Was there a street light that didn't have it?
Yes, it is. That is because, unfortunately, there was a bad Julie locate,
Okay.
and when ComEd went to do work, something was cut. We have put this request in 3 times now, and the neighbors are still complaining that that particular light has not, but as long as it's not on, I'm gonna keep calling.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Hall? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move into the utility service, sewer services report. And Mr. Newton?
Thank you. Good evening. Last month, again, was pretty routine as far as sewer calls go. There were 5. It's pretty typical. I had a good month with proactive area maintenance cleaning. Got over 5 miles done. As far as lift stations go, it was pretty routine as well. Things like fixing leaky check valves, cleaning out wet wells. Construction season has began. We were able to complete 9 in-house repairs this month. On May 3rd, we had the required site visit at the hydroelectric plant, as well as a couple of meetings, one for agencies and the other for public. That's required by FERC for our relicensing of the hydro. Now the comment period for what our application proposes is open until July 1st, and then from there we kind of move into the next steps of what studies we might have to do to continue that process. The flow monitoring study is ongoing. I believe that I included a couple of flow monitoring charts in the packet. It looks like we're getting some good data. Zone 2 and Zone 11 particularly, you can see very pronounced spikes in that data. So those will be the areas that we'll focus on when we get a camera truck.
Zach, can I ask you real quick, what would Zone 2 and Zone 11 roughly be, ballpark?
Zone 2 is going to be west of the railroad tracks, kind of over by 57, where Moore Street is, over that area. And then Zone 11 is a little bit north of River Street, along Station Street, from maybe Harrison to a little bit, not quite to Pearson. I believe that's it.
Is there any questions for Mr. Newton? Alderman O'Brien?
Mayor, we have mentioned the hydroelectric dam. Do we have a timeline that we think that will be back up and running?
Yeah, we're going to kind of give you the update on that in old business in just a second. But yes, we've got some new information on that. A lot more to come in 30 days, but we can go into it right now because Zach's right here. So we met out there. I did get, me and Zach did get an email today. That's why I was just pulling up from Neil Piggish. He spoke to Sergeant and Lundy They expect that they'll have the report for the hydro project next week at the latest, and they'll include all the estimated budget and schedules for the renovation of that. So we were hoping to have it for now, but we'll get that out. We can give it to you in advance so you can see it before our next DSU meeting. One of the things that we did talk about as this was being analyzed was, do we go with some new technology for the hydro plant, or do we stay with the existing technology that we have there? What I mean by technology with the screw pumps and things like that. The concern was the new technology is so new that we would basically be the guinea pig. And the engineers and Zach and everybody talked that they were really concerned about being the guinea pig, and what if we spend all that money, it doesn't quite work perfectly, and what do we do? We do know the old technology works, and so we decided, the engineers and everybody decided to go through with the rehabilitation and keeping the same type of technology that we have there. With that said, as you noticed in the report here, Zach's got hydro production revenue, and we'll get a little bit of this into the budget here. We have not, it's been well over a year since we produced any energy there, and that's for two reasons. The dedicated line that takes the electrical power and feeds it down to the sewer plant has some interrupters, I guess I'll call it, in there that needs to be fixed. And then there's a water pump that took fresh water from the river to cool the screw pumps down. That was broken, and so we were using domestic water from Aqua, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense to generate $7,000 worth of revenue and pay Aqua $5,000 in domestic water usage. Talking to Zach basically about 10 days ago, those items are going to be needed no matter how we fix the hydro plant, so I authorized him to move forward on getting a new pump ordered so we could start using the one turbine and start generating some power. That'll keep that up and running with the one screw pump. And then second, get that line, that'll have to be an outside contractor to make sure that that is fixed and properly working. So those are two items that we said that we're going to have to do no matter what in the renovation. So let's start that, and let's start generating a little bit of power. It won't be the full capacity until we get this completed, but it'll at least get it up and running again, and he feels comfortable. Zach, you feel comfortable with that plan with using the one screw pump at this time?
Yep, yes I do.
Okay. So that's the latest on that. So we're hoping realistically probably be late summer before we get that up and running again, but then we could start generating some power, and you'll see that in the budget. We'll talk about that in the draft budget here. So does that answer questions for you? Okay. Alderman Marzak.
On a similar note, but it's upstream, there's a significant amount of debris, logs, trees, and it's growing exponentially. My concern is the buildup of a sandbar there, and that's just upstream of the hydroelectric plant. I don't know, who we can get to, if that's, I got to clean that out again, but I think if we can get that going, that would be the thing to do.
I'm going to let Zach talk. You addressed that probably 30 days ago, or at least were on site looking at it, correct?
Yeah.
This is on the Schuyler Avenue Bridge? Yeah. I'll let you, if you want to go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I can talk with Neil. I believe before IDOT came out and cleared that off, I think that might be a good idea to reach out to them again.
And it's IDOT's bridge, so we believe that's IDOT's responsibility, so.
Mayor?
Yes.
That's in the second ward, so we've dealt with that. We hear about it often. IDOT did come out a couple years ago and clean it. It took probably 3 weeks to clean it all out, and it's only been a couple years, and now it's just as bad, if not worse. My recollection is that Neil is in touch with IDOT on that, and I thought it might be scheduled for this summer, spring or summer. But
That was our hope
we
before
should
it got
ask,
too big.
later at the next meeting, or when Neil gets here, we can ask. But yeah, it's bad and getting worse by the day.
Well, somebody said the last time it took a significant long time for the time that we approached them.
Yeah,
The
yes.
time, I mean,
Yes.
I'm going to throw out 2 years. That seems
Years,
ridiculous.
years, definitely.
It was 2 years?
Yeah.
So I've been told, or at least what I've been told, is there's like 2 or 3 crews that do like the entire state.
The whole, yeah.
And so that's part of the problem is we're not the only ones that have it, so maybe it's a squeaky wheel, whoever yells the loudest can get to them, so, but it's been addressed by several of the neighbors too, that they're concerned that why it's on the top level now, the more it piles up, the more it'll get to the bottom level, so. Is there any other questions for Mr. Newton? Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll move into our Lab Services Report, and Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, Mayor. A few updates. April was, we need to get some industrial permits updated, so that was a large part of our effort. We also have a few industries that have had some small minor violations, so we're working on getting those remedied, retesting, and making sure that those are properly handled. Additionally, we started fecal coliform testing and chlorine testing, as that's required by the NPDES permit that Carmel has through the state. And we're also working on a nutrient assessment reduction plan testing that's in addition to our normal workload that goes throughout the entire summer, and that data is then used to kind of make some determinations about Carmel's next NPDES permit. So other than that, we'll have just run pretty smooth.
Any questions for Mr. McGinnis? Okay. He's had also, this has had a lot on his plate the last 45 days with some violations, some reporting, some permitting that all had to get out, so thank you for all getting all that taken care of, so thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to the financials. Comptroller Kubal handed out 2 documents to you. If you can look at what you typically receive, and that is the expenditure and revenue report for April 30th, 2023. And I'll turn it over this time to Comptroller Kubal to walk you through that.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, it's April 30th, what we're looking at. That is a whole year here at the city with our fiscal year ending April 30th of 2023. As is how it goes this time of year, there will still be a few invoices that get accrued back to the last fiscal year as the upcoming weeks happen, but that'll be a pretty clean cutoff sometime in the June timeframe. And after we get through May, honestly, very few come through. So there will be, I should have honestly put draft on the top of this because you'll see another one, but ESU typically is pretty close compared to city that still has lots and lots of invoices that are outstanding as of April 30th. So I think you're going to like the picture that is seen here. ESU has really aligned with the budget this year, still overall came in under with expenditures and over on revenues, which is always a great picture for lots of different reasons, which I'm going to highlight right now. In the first category, 5110, which of course is administration, you can see that overall that's 89.5%. We've got a couple cleanup items here still and a bill that is going to get accrued back here, but it'll still be very, very close to the budget, and I'm very pleased with that. A few items came in over, like insurance, like health insurance, line 456 came over, and we've made those adjustments already in this budget that even in the first draft that we're going to look at tonight. Sewer Services Group, right at 100%, 99.7. Out of the managers, I have met with 2 out of 4. So that budget you will see is done. I still, because of my schedule, not because of theirs, when we get to that document, you will see that we still will have some changes to do there. But overall, there's, like I said the last month, there's a few line items that are over, but we can make adjustments on $271 of office supplies. Those are the things that are problematic in our budget. There were other items, of course, that there was hardly any money spent out of. Like, for instance, on this one, replacement parts and chemicals, those came in far under budget. Excuse me, my eyes skipped. Chemicals is what I meant to say. And that came in far under budget. So those helped to make up those differences of some inflationary pressures that we felt, as we've all felt those in our own households and such. But overall, just very, very pleased with the way this budget shook out for this year. Karma, we have made all of our payments to them. We are flush for fiscal 23. One of the reasons why bills are so low, of course, is because until budgets are passed, they don't send the new bills right away. So we'll have a little bit of time of quiet till Karma's budget gets passed, and then, of course, we will make good on all the commitments there. But right now, we are kind of in that lull period as everyone's working to get their budgets passed. Top of page 2, technical services, looking really strong. Couple line items again, just a little bit over from what was budgeted, but nothing concerning at all, mostly inflationary types of items. And right there at 97.7%. Moving into lab services, overall they were at 92.4%. Again, it's kind of repeat here. A few line items are over, but none of which cause any concern or any massive misplanning or unexpected items that came up year to date. Debt service, we've made all those amortization payments, and we are good there. And on May 1st, I'm sorry, just 1 minute. On May 1st, we did make all the needed payments for principal and interest, the mayor and I did with the bonds. Alderman, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Under 503, under the lab, it says AA supply. What would that be? AA supply?
That is a great question. I'm going to look to our manager for the AA. Once upon a time, I remembered it, but I don't today.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's part of that AA lab, so that ICP that we purchased is now going to be that new category. So instead of AA, it'll be ICP, but that's just the name of that piece of equipment. So it's basically all the supplies associated with that piece of equipment.
Thank you for that question. Top of page 3, Public Works Department. Really pleased here once again, 96.8 overall. We will still have a couple bills come through, but overall, same type of thing. Where there were overages, for instance, this is one department, as we sat down with DPW with budget, fuel is not over in their department. It's because they obviously have to budget so much more fuel for bad winters. And obviously, we were blessed this last winter with a very mild winter. So we definitely still took a look at that to make sure we had coverage in case we did have one of those 2014 winters again or something with the fuel. So the inflationary problems within fuel didn't hit their department as largely because of the cushion they have to have for the snowfall and such. But overall, just really, really strong. And you can see the overall utility expense then, 96.8%. Total year-to-date so far with all payrolls in and such is $19,629,543.38. So just really, really pleased with that. As you recall, when we passed this budget last year, it had a very, very small surplus. We weren't really for sure about some of the revenue line items. Moving into revenues, you will see that they have surpassed our expectations this year, which is a good thing. We are still cautious. We'll talk about that in budget going into the next year. But as we move into revenues here, you can see that residential commercial came in at $580,588 for the month, putting us a little bit over budget. That's $6.9 million. We do not quite have those industrial sewer numbers yet. So when we get those all done, we will add those to that number. But I did book a 0 there for now, although we already know it's been very strong. Solid waste fees were $247,808, right under budget, so we will make sure that we make any needed adjustments there with the increases that will happen, and then the miscellaneous revenue. So overall revenues are at 107.5%. So just really, really strong, and I think that our budgeted, with all the uncertainty, our budget that was very small will come in with a nice surplus this year, of which we can, hopefully make sure that we place those monies in our reserve accounts, make sure those are proper, and things of that sort.
Thank you, Comptroller Kubal. Is there any questions, detailed questions you have about the current revenue and expenditures for environmental services utility? We'll talk about in the draft budget when we come into here. As you know, we went in this budget, we were a little concerned. An entity like CSL, because they put in their pre-treatment facility and it's up and fully running as of January 1. We weren't sure how that would affect us with revenue, why they have significantly taken off a lot of loading, so that's decreased some surcharges and things there. Their flow has increased with it, and so that has kept their revenue stream up on that, so we haven't felt an impact from CSL yet, but we'll talk about that in the budget. That still could be a position for the future that we got to address. But overall, there was no drop-off in the last 12 months that we were a little bit concerned of, and we'll talk about that going forward with the next 12 months also. Any questions? Okay. We will move into old business. Hydro update, we kind of just gave the update there. As I said, I'm as anxious as all of you are. I'm kind of on pins and needles, nervous, I guess, to find out what the renovation of the hydro plant will potentially cost. As it was mentioned by Neil, we hope that by the end of next week that we'll have those numbers, and I'll be happy to email out this to the committee so that we can talk about that in June going forward. And but we're already starting the process of everything with the relicensing, with the getting some work done and everything and moving forward with the hydro plant. So to me, it's just one of those things that still makes a lot of sense for us as a city of Keiki to invest our money in. So is there any questions on the hydro update at this point? As I mentioned, we'll get that up and running, and you'll see that in the draft budget. If you look last year, we had budgeted $70,000 of income just because we thought we might have a thing. We kept that thing shut down the whole time to make sure we didn't have any problems, but we are going to budget some minor dollars going into next fiscal year as we anticipate getting it up and testing it out before we do the full renovation. Alderwoman Johnson.
You may have answered this. Don't we have a turbine somewhere in Wisconsin or Michigan?
We have one up in Michigan. It's still there. Zach and Neil, they both verified it's still there.
Will the renovations that we do include the cost of?
We're going to find out what they're
like that?
suggesting we should do. I don't know
Okay.
yet if it's a complete replacement or rebuilds
Okay.
of the existing ones. So a rebuild is much cheaper than a complete replacement. I think Zach, like a new one's $1 million roughly, we think. Could be. It's hard to say, but we're kind of waiting to see what this report tells us next week.
Okay.
That we should rebuild them or we should buy new ones, and I guess that'll all come in. If it comes in at $7 million, we have a problem, and it's got 3 new pumps into it. If it's $2.5 million and it's 3 rebuilds or something, then we'll know from there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Also, under our old business, we still have the ESU superintendent position. We've talked about this at the last 2 meetings, about removing the potential for the engineer and opening up for wide questions of candidates there. That takes a little bit on my part. I thought it took a change of the handbook, so I was looking at bringing that forward tonight. It actually requires a change of the ordinance and would need to go to full city council when we change an ordinance. So I'm projecting that on June 5th, we'll bring before the city council the adjustment of the superintendent position that does not require the engineer degree. It's preferred, but it wouldn't be a requirement, and see if that opens up some candidates that could be in that ESU superintendent position. So we expect that on June 5th, we'd bring that before the city council. Moving into unfinished business, we have none. So we're now going to move into new business. And before you is another draft, another sheet that Comptroller Kubal handed out to you. So this is hot off the presses. This is a draft budget, and I'm going to turn this again over to Comptroller Kubal. And as she talks about some things, we'll both add in pieces as we go forward on a lot of different things. So our goal, correct me if I'm wrong, is this is a draft budget. We'll continue to tweak and work on this, and that we would hope at the June meeting that we'd be able to bring a final budget, do you believe?
I would hope so.
That's our
Mayor.
goal, so that we, at our next meeting, we bring a final budget for ESU for you. So Comptroller Kubal.
Thank you, Mayor. As you look at the budget is and what the color on it and such, couple things, kind of high level things right now. So salaries are in this budget solid. So we know that what those increases were, and they all went into effect May 1st for those positions. So that is a solid piece. As I mentioned before, I was able to meet with my schedule with 2 out of 4 of the managers. The other 2 we will meet hopefully this week due to my schedule, and we will get their departments solidified. So there could be some tweaks within tech services and within the lab, because clearly the managers know their departments, and I just put guesses in other than salaries. So we will get those tidied up. But as we work through, I think things will just come up as we go through the line items. And Mayor, when we get to capital here, I'll turn it back over to you briefly. But in the administration category, the top of that very first page, and I apologize, I did not put page numbers on this document. You can see that we kind of have our basic items in here. There are some salaries that come out of there, more items that are representative of some other departments that support the ESU. The bit for the utility board, like yourselves. And then we have our FICA Medicare taxes and IMRF employer taxes. When you see the IMRF employer, I'm going to do more analysis on that number, but you can see that there's a drop of $159,000, and that is very odd. We've never had anything like that the whole time I've worked here. And there is a reason. I'm just fearful I took it too low based off the percentage, so I'm going to look at that again. IMRF, obviously with their returns, I just sat through a seminar. 2022 was, dismal, right? We all know that from our personal accounts and so forth. And although, just for things I think you all should know being on the council, they actually told us that in 2022, IMRF lost $7.9 billion. Billion, I just said. I had to think about that one. Even when they lost it, they're so well funded, they went from 98.6% to 98.2% and lost almost $8 billion. It's such a well-run fund. They had such good returns in the prior years up to 22, and that always works kind of with a lag. So this year for our employer contribution, we are only paying 5.4%, which is what drove me to make the change here. I've worked now in government for over 20 years. I've never at 3 IMRF employers had 5.4% ever, ever. Usually it's been 11, 11.5, 10.2, 9.9, and items like that. But 5.4 is the employer contribution. Our employees put in 4.5%, as many of you know. So it's just an interesting time. They are starting to see the effects of that Tier 2 that they brought into play in 2010. So it was a fascinating presentation. You could actually see it on the curve that they're starting to see that benefit. So everything is aligning the way it should. So I just want to make sure I explain to you why I'm taking $159,000 away right now. Like I said, I will review that. I always research these numbers again as we're getting there. But that is the main reason and the main driver for that number. Going on down, you can see on line 456, health insurance. That went up substantially because insurance, as everyone knows, has gone up substantially. And that includes Teamsters, which has their own insurance. That includes operators, which has their own insurance. And that includes our ones who have Blue Cross Blue Shield and a cushion if we were to hire, if there were to be some new employees that were hired, we put a cushion in for those. They might change coverages. We might have a single go to a family and so forth and so on. So, James, could you give me? All right, continuing down the list, contractual services 522 is the next large increase. You can see some of these lines. I'm not going to go over every single line. Audit, we increase because audit goes up. But contractual services, Mayor and I talked about that. We put a decrease in there. That is where we accounted for Mary Lou Norwell when she was with us as a consultant. Clearly, she is retired, as we well know. And our new in-house counsel, Dawn, is here 40 hours a week. She is an employee, and we have her going to be absorbed within the general fund budget. So I just want to make that clarification why that looks so substantially different as well. Collection expense is going up. That has to do with all of our collection and so forth from Aqua. Clearly, if we are collecting more money, they are taking more money, and that is the only reason why, per our agreement, that is the only reason why that has gone up so much. On down, there's some other ones. I'm going to relook at liability insurance, study workers' comp, and do those things. But overall, there's no big changes there. The admin building and grounds maintenance, that was for a specific project, which will be over. So we are not going to rebudget that item. And then, Mayor, if you want to speak about capital, we wrap this particular department up.
Yeah. So if you look at capital last year, capital is those things that everything from buying equipment to machines to what we're really going to have to look at this year is our physical structures, our property that we own. Last year we budgeted $500,000. I think if you looked at your expenses, we were about $460.40. I think we'll come in at about $525 when it's all said and done in capital. We'll a little bit over. We looked at this year, and all our operations managers are probably looking at this number going, ooh, I'm getting on my wish list. I'm not that much of a Santa Claus yet, so. But there is a lot of needs that each of the departments need. I could go through them. We'll provide a detailed list for you. But we have significantly tried to increase this up to $950,000. We have a lot of deferred maintenance on our physical structures that we haven't done in many, many years. Things like you saw we had done the tuck pointing on the front side of this building this last year. We didn't do the other 3 sides that need to be done. The roof has not been replaced here in a long time. There's other physical structures with windows and other roofs on other buildings are starting to fall apart. At DPW, we've got some damaged walls and entries that haven't been repaired in several years and are starting to become a safety hazard that we need to take care of. And then even small things of, we own a lot of parking lots in downtown Kankakee and throughout the city, whether it's fire department lots or the farmer's market lot. They haven't been seal coated since 2016. A lot of you, if you look at your businesses, you seal coat those every 3 years is ideal, definitely every 5. We're going on 8 and we haven't seal coated them and crack routed them. So those are, when you don't do that, obviously the asphalt starts to fall apart really bad. So we've got a large number here. We'll see where this all shakes out so that we make sure we have a good balanced budget, but there's a lot of deferred maintenance, little things like, if you remember, we redid all the HVAC in this building here. We had to kind of do that on a last minute emergency situation when it was 95 degrees in here last summer. The administration building is the same type of system. If we're ahead of it, we're afraid that the guts and the brains on that system needs to be replaced also before it shuts down for a 2-week period and we're in an emergency situation. So we've upped capital a lot because of what I call the physical structures of our facilities need to have some attention to it that we haven't probably dealt with in 8 to 10 years. And our goal is to try and do a lot of that over the next 2 to 3 year period. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on into Sewer Services Group, I did have the pleasure of meeting with Zach. We went over all the items and the increases. It is so wonderful when you have set union contracts because it's just a really nice launching pad for the budget and easy to get those numbers represented. You can see that there were no major asks within this department. All asks from Zach, of course, are what the mayor just talked about, making sure that we do what we need to do to preserve our buildings and take care of the items that we already own. So that is an increase of $24,000 proposed at this time. Wastewater treatment, I'm very thankful to the Karma representatives that are here tonight and to the mayor for including me and Karma being so good about letting me see their documents so that I can properly budget here for the city of Kankakee. And so this is the number right now that is where the Karma board is looking at. They have not approved yet, as our representatives would tell us, but I will keep in touch with everyone, and we will change that number if it so gets changed. But right now, that is our best guess where it will go with the increases that they have, of course, with our 3 main categories, with operations, with the bonds, and with any type of savings that need to be done on that side. So that's the increase, and that's a large increase, $363,624, although less than last year. Moving to page 2. Top of that page is Technical Service Group. Claire and I, she's one of the ones I could not quite fit into my schedule last week, so we will be meeting this week. We've got some items to look at. They were hit fairly hard with some of the inflationary, however, seem to be, just at top glance, possibly a little over budgeted and not all properly aligned. So I can't wait to sit down with Claire so we can get those line items perfect. I suspect this one's going to look a little different the next time you all see it. So it hasn't had the managers touch on it yet, but we will certainly get those changes in there. Same exact situation with laboratory. Salaries are solid, as they are for this whole entire budget, but I still need to meet with Ryan and see what changes he needs for his department and what best suits that department for this coming year. Debt service, I just did increase that one. I think that that's close, but when I started looking at my bond amortization schedule, I'm a little concerned I don't have the right schedule on one of the bonds. So I'm going to definitely revisit that number, but I know it's going to slightly go up. I just don't know if it's 50,000 yet or 80,000. I've just got to get that schedule perfect, and then I'll have a very solid number for you. Top of page 3, Public Works Group. I was able to sit down with James and with Frank, and we went over every item in detail. I feel very, very good about this. No worries on that supervisory line because we had buyouts that were taken out of that line this year. So when you see a decrease of 80,000, I don't want you to think we're losing a person or decreasing our staff. That is not the situation. That's representative of a buyout from last year. So that's why that is going down. Labor and everything, it's interesting that once again, having the solid salaries in here, we put in what we think. We've kind of double checked those already. I feel really good about this particular part of the budget. I have all of the wording in here for all the numbers in here for all the items that they need to address their department properly. This definitely was our hardest hit department with inflationary items because they buy a lot of materials, a lot of supplies to make sure that our city runs the way it needs to. So we accounted for those. We feel good about the numbers we have in there, and it appears that we will be able to absorb those increases. So overall, it looks like right now we're at $885,000 more, remembering that, almost half of that, not quite, is karma. We did have some savings, but, items go up, and obviously a lot of that's capital as well, as we just talked about. Moving into revenues, this right now, we're still doing some analysis on. We're waiting to see what those April numbers look like, especially for industrial. With residential and industrial, remember I believe it was April of 22, Mayor, when we passed the ordinance, that allowed for a 7% increase for this upcoming year. We did 6.5 and then 7. This is the 7 year. So we are definitely going to put some increases in there. Residential commercial held strong. Industrial was very strong, as we talked about earlier. Solid waste fees in that same ordinance, it is also in there, and it was 4%. But we seem to be a wee bit over budgeted there. So I think that actually will end up looking about the same as we go forward. All the other items stayed most relatively close. Mayor did talk about that hydro revenue that we wanted to make sure we back down, because we know for several months we won't have any hydro activity there as we're awaiting that report. And you can see then at the total, you can see revenue-wise, we're projecting, right now $1 million more than possibly what was budgeted last year, and leaving us with a surplus right now of $188,164. And I promise you that number will change 30 times before I get back to you guys in June. So obviously call, ask questions, anything you have. I will get those firm numbers from the 2 other managers, and we'll get a really solid budget here. But I feel like we're presenting a 75% done budget right now, so I feel pretty good, and I feel confident we can get this to the finish line at the next issue meeting.
We are being very, I don't know if the word conservative or cautious, but with the industrial sewer, again, CSL, they're looking good. But with their pretreatment facility, that's a number that could decrease. We've got another industry or two that could see a significant decrease in revenue to the city. We don't know if that'll happen. We don't know if it won't happen. And then just with the economy is still pretty strong right now. If things start to pull back, that means some of their production pulls back, some of their revenue pulls back. So just on that line item, if you look at the numbers that we had earlier, industrial sewer was very strong in the last fiscal year, but we're still going to be very cautious and conservative with that budgeting number moving forward, just because the worst thing I'd rather under budget and have it come in much higher than to expect to set up a budget on much higher revenue and find out it doesn't come in place. So just to kind of give you an update on that, and we'll be going back and forth with a lot of these numbers and tweaking here. So there's a couple, just one last thing I'll kind of throw in. There's a couple items that we're looking at with personnel and some different things. And again, I'm going to go back to, we haven't finalized or said anything yet, but we have, Zach, remind me, I think it's 21, you feel it's more, 21 to 25 physical properties in the city of Kankakee. We've really kind of grown over the years. And we're looking at how we maintain that with personnel. We've basically been doing it with one person, and that may be difficult when you have that many properties now, that it may need another body or so to help keep the day-to-day things of these buildings. We have older buildings that we maintain. None of them are brand new. I don't think we have any new construction buildings, so they've all got, just like our homes, they all need love and attention on a weekly basis. So, any questions regarding the first draft of the ESU budget? If you can, like I said, as you go home and digest this and look at it, if you can reach out to myself or Comptroller Kubal in the next couple of weeks, that would be ideal. Maybe before June 1st or before our next city council meeting of June 5th, that'd be ideal, so that we still have, we'll call it 10 working days to put everything together, to hopefully the goal to bring you a final one for review. So, okay. We'll move on to item B under new business. The last part you'll see there, we had last fall, unfortunately, this is those things where you look at capital and you wonder why you got to keep capital, amounts there, because unexpected things happen. So we have a storm sewer line that is down in the Riverview area that had a sinkhole in someone's backyard. Large sinkhole, collapsed down there, and the problem is those houses are really close to each other, but we have to maintain that now because it's kind of like having a sinkhole in a road or anywhere else. So realizing it was a much larger project than we thought we could take on ourselves, we had Pickish Engineering take a look at it, and we went out for bid. We did get, last Thursday, we opened up 2 bids, one from Kinky Valley Construction, one from Scanlon Excavating, to repair the sinkhole in this backyard. We have to get some temporary easements, so I expect on June 5th, you'll see the recommendation for this award to repair the sinkhole, and you're also going to see 3 permanent and temporary easements. Hopefully they'll come forward to City Council. We need the permanent easements for the repair of the storm sewer line, and we need a temporary easement from one of the neighbors so that we hopefully can use their yard to get the equipment into the backyard so that we can do the work. The bids came in, the low bid was Kinky Valley Construction at $36,272. The other bid was $44,953. So Pickish Engineer, we're recommending that we accept the low bid from Kinky Valley Construction of $36,272. As I said, the agenda was set by last Thursday, so I'm just looking for a recommendation from this committee to forward this to the council for June 5th for acceptance of the low bid formally by council action. So is there a recommendation from this committee? Alderwoman Johnson?
I recommend we move it to full council, please.
One last phone call you might get? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. So we have a motion from Alderwoman Johnson to forward this to City Council for approval. We have a second from Alderman Jones. Is there any questions or comments regarding this repair? Okay. Seeing none, can we do a quick roll call, please?
Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz. Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Vega.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Hall.
Abstain due to a conflict.
Thank you.
Okay. We will have this on the June 5th meeting for acceptance at that meeting. And we couldn't move forward on the project till we get the easements in place anyway, so that's why we weren't in a huge rush to get this done tonight. So we do not have a need for an executive session tonight. So next is adjournment. But before that, is there any questions or comments for the good of the order from the committee? Quiet group tonight. Saving all their energy for council, right? All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Osinga. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Alderwoman Swanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned. We'll see everybody in about 30 minutes. Thank you.